Had a bunch of spring games this past weekend. Oregon played, Penn State sort of did something in the rain up there, Jesse. Notre Dame, Indiana. So I want to talk to you about Oregon for a second. Got some eyes on some of this, talked to some people, good solid sourcing on the ground. Even NACO's contributed. At Oregon, they played a game. Blue skies up in Autzen Stadium. Big crowd up there. I'm going to read you a stat line, Jesse. I want you to tell me who this is. 4 receptions, 110 yards, 1 touchdown. Evan Stewart. People thought he was a ghost, like he didn't exist anymore. No, Evan Stewart is still very real. And Evan Stewart is part of, along with DeCorian Moore and several others, a group that may end up being one of, if not the best, overall pass-catching groups in college football. Hey, check me on this. Did I say Dylan or Evan? I did say Evan, right? I said Evan. Okay, because I got Dylan Stewart later in the show. I've said his name a lot today, and I cannot stand when I'm driving home and only then someone tells me I got a name wrong, because it happens about once per show. So, yeah, pass catching not going to be a problem up there. Also, defensive line, not going to be a problem up there. To the point that if you ask around Oregon, the name they keep mentioning is Aiden Breland. And Aiden Breland is a redshirt sophomore who, I guess going into spring and maybe even coming out of spring, you would not pencil in their starting 4. It's just that Oregon's in this weird situation where just mathematically, you would expect from the production they had last year to lose one or multiples of those guys to either the draft or the portal or something like that. But since it's Oregon, they didn't lose anybody. So they bring back their entire starting 4 on the defensive line. And so Elijah Rushing, Matt Johnson, like Aiden Breland, those dudes aren't maybe even trotting out there with the ones in week 1. And it is an extremely deep defensive line group. It's an extremely deep pass catching group. They may have the first overall pick in the upcoming draft with Dante Moore. So offensive line is going to be a question there. And I'm going to do Joe Lorg a big favor. Special teams look terrible in the spring game. And so I can only assume that Oregon special teams will suck this year until someone proves otherwise. And a good, close personal friend of the program happens to be the special teams coach up there. So Joe Lorg's just got to do better. Just got to do better. I'd hate to see special teams hold them back. Penn State, less of a spring game, more of a practice. Terrible weather. Half the team was out. You did get a good look at the updated construction timeline, I guess, if you went and you took your poncho and your umbrella and whatnot. So the Rocco Beck timeline, we've been following that. He's been one of the players who have been out with injury this spring. Looks good. Jesse, scale of 1 to 10 with your hand. How good do you feel that he'll be ready for fall camp? That's an 8. That's voice sounded like a solid 9 earlier. Only an 8. Okay. Well, I feel good. I feel like he'll be okay. Kobe Howard is a sophomore wide receiver. Now, if you are around Penn State, you know what I'm about to tell you. If you weren't, Kobe Howard was one of those guys last year. You've all had them at various points in your fandom where you watched your team and you were high on a guy and you were wondering, man, how come he's not getting in more? Especially if you're struggling at his position. Man, why is he not getting in more? Well, I think based on what we're hearing from out of there, and Pete Nakos over at on3.com did a really good job of putting some feedback together that he had heard from Penn State today. I think he may be a standout for them this year. Now, when I say standout, 2 of their top wide receiver options were out for spring. So he got a lot of attention, and he profiles as like a solid wide receiver 3 option, but with really, really good upside. So, not just like pigeonholed there forever. Malachi Goodman, that was a top 40 overall player in the last recruiting cycle. Feel really good. Feels like they feel really good about him at left tackle. Now, the dynamic most of the time in spring is defense ahead of offense. There is a pretty unique dynamic at Penn State, best I can gather, in that a lot of the Iowa State guys transferred on both sides of the ball. But on the offensive side, they came over with their coordinator, Taylor Mauser. So there's not a lot of acclimation that has to happen there. And so it's felt like when you compare that to Danton Lynn coming there as the defensive coordinator and trying to implement a much different system than that sort of like 3-3-5 sort of dynamic that these guys played in under Heacock over at Iowa State, it's felt like offense was probably a little ahead of defense And that'll rectify itself over time at Penn State. What about Notre Dame? Hey, do me one favor right here. Look down. Are you subscribed to the channel? If you are, thank you. If you're not, please click subscribe. It helps us keep the show free and free of corporate interference. All right, that's it for me. Back to the clip. Massive crowd at Notre Dame. I am told that Notre Dame had the second most attended spring game in history. Fairly good football program there over the years, by the way. And I am here with one message. I don't want you to look foolish this fall when Notre Dame's effectiveness at running back takes you by surprise. Because I watched the draft just like you did. I saw them lose 2 first-round running backs. Crazy stat. You would think if a team had 2 first-round caliber tailbacks on its roster last year and both of them are gone, then boy, that's going to be a really deficient position the upcoming year. And you got good reason to think that. Most places it would be. Notre Dame's just not one of them. Aeneas Williams. I'm going Aeneas, yeah. I mean, there's an actual E in the name there. Aeneas Williams, really, really good player. I'm not doing the whole compare him to Jeremiah Love thing. What I'm going to say is from a player profile perspective, trusting him being effective out of the backfield in the receiving game, being able to trust him, being able to also trust that he doesn't have to shoulder the entire load. You know, being able to trust Kedron Young, who should be good, by the way. I would assume based on his own words, he should be good sometime over the summer, coming back from injury. They're really, really good still in that room. They've still got really good depth in that room. So if Notre Dame doesn't get it done this fall, it won't be because they failed to run the ball. Now, C.J. Carr, interesting quote here. So C.J. Carr at quarterback, he's going to be a great player this year. So we're really nitpicking at this point. Mike Denbrock, possibly in an attempt to pull the hot air balloon back to earth a little bit, had this to say about C.J. Carr, quote, C.J. Carr is in a position now where he can steer the ship. Sometimes he steers it in a ditch, and sometimes he steers it on the straight and narrow. We're still working through all that, okay? This is key. Trash your best players in spring. You have got to keep the hype balloons in check, and sometimes they need to be deflated, and sometimes they need to be popped. And you don't have to throw them totally under the bus. Just put a little blood in the water. You remember what I said about Bryce Underwood the other day? It's not the worst thing in the world if the last thing people see of you in spring is you not looking great. That could sometimes be a perfect ingredient to the summer recipe. Defensive line's good. Defensive line's deep. Their entire linebacker room is back. They got probably the best corner in the country, and he's not alone in Leonard Moore. It's going to be a really, really tough out. I have no idea how Notre Dame would miss the playoff this year. And if they're in there, this team can absolutely win it all. Absolutely win it all. Indiana had their spring game. You may be thinking, that's weird. I looked all over Saturday. I didn't see Indiana. Well, that's because they had it Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. Notably, the NFL draft also started Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. You're just dealing with a different kind of human in Curt Cignetti. I got no problem with it, but you're dealing with a different kind of human. Was not much time for Josh Hoover, who is the quarterback transfer from TCU. Didn't have a lot of time, kind of newness on the offensive line, had a couple of guys out. Bryant Haynes just sending message after message, both on the field and on Twitter. He put out, voluntarily, by the way, Bryant Haynes takes to Twitter and says, these were the 6 toughest offenses we faced last year. Paul Feinbaum was one of them. Not even number 6 either. Oregon was on there twice. And then he deleted it, which is probably the most disappointing thing Bryant Haynes has done so far this year. Hadn't been much disappointment. Nick Marsh at wide receiver. We've been looking forward to talking about him there. 6'3", 200, trying to backfill Surratt and Cooper off to the next level. Nick Marsh, I have been high on as a player, and hopefully I finally get some return on that emotional investment. Tyler Morris is there. Charlie Becker's still there. So, look, that wide receiver room is going to be good. I think, again, defense ahead of offense, not the biggest shock. Also not a shock. Indiana looks like they're going to be the real deal again this fall.